My log has something to tell you.
Tonight, we are diving into the most vicious 90s baby to ever walk the earth. I'm talking one that likes to rip throats and suck you dry till there's nothing left inside, not even organs. You'll be left an empty carcass with your eyeballs popped out and all your organs sucked out and no blood left after you meet El Chupacabra, or the goat sucker, if you're nasty. Now, there's a lot of rumors out there about my best friend El Chupacabra. If you were to enter it into an old Google search, one of the top videos you'd see is a couple dudes discussing old Chupi over some beers, which I love. But they talk about Chupi first being sighted in 1995 by a young girl named Madeline, and how, because she was into the movie Species, obviously it was just a case of mass hysteria, and everyone in Puerto Rico was just hallucinating this species creature. Well, I'm here to tell you that's all bunk. Don't believe anything on the internet unless it's coming from me, but even then, be careful. Chupacabra started in 1975. The first sighting was in 1975 in Mocha, Puerto Rico. But we'll get there in a bit. Before we get to anything, we gotta get to the wasteland. Before we dive into this wonderful and exciting history of El Chupacabra, I need you to get a picture in your mind's eye. The creature's been described in various different ways, but my favorite is the little gargoyle guy with bat-like wings, glowing red or orange eyes, fangs, a terrible stench, reptile-like skin, large gray alien-like eyes, and spiky fins that run down all the way to its back. It stands at about 3 to 4 feet tall, weighs about 70 to 120 pounds. The range and habitat of old El Chupacabra runs from northern Mexico, Texas, and much of the Southwest into California, South America, Puerto Rico, and even Spain. The population size of these guys? Unknown. The diet? Carnivore. It loves organs. It's a big organ creature. Loves to suck them up and eat them. Behavior? The flying vampire beast known as El Chupacabra silently patrols the skies, only descending from the darkness to attack livestock and people. The source of this information comes straight to us from Mexican-American folklore, urban legend, and cryptozoology. So the people who have seen this beast. I've been lucky enough to even know someone who's seen this creature, and I believe, dollars to donuts, that they saw what they saw, just like I believe the upcoming stories we're gonna read and get into. Now, if you've ever had yourself an encounter with the unknown, and you'd like to share that with me, I would love to hear it, because as always,
we're ready to believe you.
I want to hear them stories. I want to hear them tales. We believe already. Now, encountering the Chupacabra, the last and most vital stat here is rated 4 Jersey Devils out of 5. So if you go into the wilderness or the area, the habitat of old Chupi, chances are you're gonna run into the fucker if you got the right aura, if you got the right tude. The dude might show up for you. But be careful. You'll see from these reports, it ain't necessarily friendly. People say that El Chupacabra first broke onto the scene in 1995. Well, that's when Chupi became most famous, but little do we know, Chupacabra is a true Gen Xer, born in 1975 in Mocha, Puerto Rico. Hundreds, and we know by Jacques Vallée's law of 10, for every one sighting, there might be about 10 unreported sightings because, people don't believe, don't want to talk about their experiences. So we take hundreds, that could be thousands, folks, thousands to hundreds of livestock found dead, drained of blood, no organs, no sign of any struggle. No creature to be found in these sightings. Ended up being called the Vampire of Mocha, Puerto Rico, by the way. However, screams, hums, and the flapping of wings were heard in the night. Also, strange-looking large birds were seen in and around the island throughout the year. And these are reports made to authorities. Police officers even went out and investigated. Now, after 1975, old Chupi goes silent until March of 1991, Palmero, Puerto Rico. Couples hanging out, watching their TV or whatever people did in 1991 in Puerto Rico at night. Their dogs start going crazy, and they don't stop going crazy, but they're like, whatever. It might just be typical dog fun out there. It wasn't until they heard a weird, slow phonograph sound surround their house that they got a little concerned. Then when they heard one of their large Dobermans yelp and scream, the husband decided to go check out what the heck was going on. What he found were two gray aliens standing on his porch that were startled by the husband and poof, disappeared. Unfortunately, he found one of his Dobermans skinned, organless, and bloodless in the same moment. Now, this encounter in 91 outside of Palmero, Puerto Rico, we could imagine if there's one, there had to be at least 10. At least. Of these type of attacks. All goes relatively quiet until 1995. This is when the famous sightings start picking up. And again, people like to say mass hysteria for old Chupi, but just like the Mad Gasser, the mass hysteria hypothesis is kind of bunk. The Mad Gasser reported in 2 different states at different times. So one was really early, and there wasn't enough reports to really warrant mass hysteria in the first one. In the second wave of reports, there was, because it was all over the news, all over media. But no one ever talks about the earlier reports, so it kind of makes it wasn't just something invented, it was something that's been around. Just like with El Chupacabra, it wasn't something that was invented in 95 because motherfucking Species came out and people liked that movie. It was around since 1975. Well, let's get to the sightings. What the fuck am I even talking about, eh? In 95, we get a tick of sightings, not only a tick up, not only in Puerto Rico, but around the world. So I'm talking hundreds and thousands of poor livestock and pets drained and left to be found by their owners. God, that's fucking sad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it that dark. But where does this trail of thousands of dead animal corpses even lead us? Let's find out. March 26, 1995, Orocovis, Puerto Rico. A mountainous area where hundreds of livestock turned up dead and mutilated, empty with nothing inside. Reports from one San Juan radio station described how 2 police officers investigating a recent sheep massacre encountered a 3 to 4 foot humanoid creature with glowing orange eyes peering at them from the jungle line. When they chased the creature, both of them were struck with nausea and they were unable to pursue it any further. Where have we heard about being struck by nausea by a strange creature before? In almost every single report we've ever read. People get struck by some weird beam, a weird gas, some nausea, and then poof, they're done. With Spring Hill Jack, he shot a beam at people. With a Mad Gasser, it was a blue gas that just went poof out at folks. With gray aliens, people feel paralyzed, but there's always this element of being stuck, being controlled. Even El Chupacabra has his powers. Then at 6 a.m., several hours later on the same day, one investigator, Jamie Torres, comes bopping along to see what he can see. What he encounters is the same creature. He reports seeing its skin shift, become translucent, shift brown, yellow, blue, and then fade into the jungle with the orange glowing eyes. This chameleon-like skin would show up in several other reports that were made to police officers about this creature running around Orocovis in March of 1995. Now let's get into some cases. April 23rd, Ronaldo Ortega Naranjito tussled with the beast on his own roof. He's asleep, he hears a banging on the roof, he goes to peek at what's up there, he sees a chameleon-like 3 to 4 foot tall humanoid with fins going down its spine and glowing orange eyes. It hisses at him and then leaps off his roof. He describes really strong hind legs on the creature. Then on May 11th, a gargoyle-like creature is reported by several onlookers to be menacing a bus stop. A police officer approaches the creature in order to shoo it off, and it attacks the officer and grabs its baton. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured as the creature faded off into the jungle, as it does after it attacked the police officer. In that same month, an elderly sugarcane cutter suffered a heart attack when a gigantic bird attacked him while he was working. Now, a little side note here. Our friend the Jersey Devil was known to also mutilate cattle. The Vampire of Mocha, the Vampire of Mocha was known to have large wings as well. Is this a Jersey Devil Chupacabra collaboration here? Are they just like loving all the buffet of farm animals? Anywho, luckily, the elderly man survived his heart attack and lived to tell his tale of his encounter with this giant winged chupacabra. That lines up with the gargoyle beast that the bus stop folks saw on May 11th. And also it's going to line up with some other cases we're going to get to. By August, the number of sightings and mutilations was so large it became hard to ignore. Chupacabra was front page news around the world. Other medias started picking it up. And that's when the sightings in Canovanas started happening. Now, it wasn't just Madeline. Before she cited anything, there was another sighting by a prominent citizen, educated and devout, my research tells me. Daniel Perez went out one night to investigate a moaning sound that he was hearing. He flings his window open to peer out and see what he can see. He doesn't see anything. So he goes to close the window, and that's when he's hit with a loud buzzing noise. A loud buzzing noise. Gosh. That's like in every alien abduction and other creature encounter we ever read about. Wonder what happens next. The next thing he observed was an object descend. Now, he doesn't describe it as falling like some creature that jumped. It's like floats down and lands on a rock about 20 feet in front of him. He says, and this is a little bigger of a chupacabra, he says it stood 5 feet tall and had powerful looking hind legs like one of our earlier witnesses, with a large head and 6-inch fins running down its back with tiny forearms. This is the first time we get a description of its arms. He describes them as tiny. This is going to conflict a little bit with Madeline's tale, but we'll get to that. After he witnessed the creature, and the creature witnessed that he was witnessing him and the creature on the roof having a party, enjoying each other, the creature began to vibrate and then ascended back into the sky. Now, were his hind legs so powerful that he is like, when he jumped, it was just light as a feather? Who knows? But that was the story of Daniel Perez, a bit before Madeline has her encounter. Now let's get to a big one here. About a month after Daniel Perez's encounter, at 4 p.m., one Madeline Tolentino was helping her family at their home when she noticed a car just stopped right in front of the car, letting it idle, right? And she looks, and in the driver's seat, this man is terrified, and he's pointing at something. What he's pointing at is a creature emerging from the side of the Tolentino house. Madeline describes the creature much like Perez does and the other witnesses. Glowing eyes, scaly skin, fins that run down its back. They look like spikes. Powerful hind legs, but she describes long arms on the creature. Now, I'll give it, maybe her brain was kind of focused on species in that moment because the alien lady creature in that movie has longer arms. However, were hundreds of other sightings of this entity, so it doesn't track that Madeline was the one that exploded it and made it look like a humanoid. That's just not true. Now, when Chupacabra comes to America, it gets bastardized, as things do, and it turns into some mangy dog. That's what everyone thinks. That's the official story about Chupacabra. It's just a mangy dog with a disease, but it ain't, if you ask me at least. But I don't know Jack Poop, so don't ask me. But anywho, now, after they sighted the creature took off for the jungle. Madeline's mom took off after it. Hot on her tail was a young man that was working at the house as well. He took off after the creature too. He claims that he caught the darn creature and was able to pry its mouth open and see large fangs before it escaped and ran off into the jungle, disappearing, ascending once again into the sky. Overall, the creature had various different descriptions, but one researcher, Jorge Martin, thank goodness for him, he read everybody's firsthand accounts and put together this description. So I'm just gonna read it straight up. Sorry, I gotta make sure my books are old. I gotta be careful when I move. It appears to have strong, coarse hair all over its body, and whilst most observers claimed that the hair is black, it has the remarkable ability to change colors at will, almost like a chameleon. In the dark, it will change to black or a deep brown color. In a sunlit area surrounded by vegetation, it changes to green, green-gray, light brown, or beige. The creature has 2 small arms with 3-fingered clawed hands and 2 strong hind legs. again with 3 claws. This appears to enable it to run quickly and leap over 20 feet in a single bound. According to many observations, the creature's legs look almost reptilian or goat-like. Reptilian or goat-like? The Lake Worth monster of Texas also has similar attributes. It has quill-like appendages running down from its back with what seemed to be fleshy membrane that changed color from blue to green, red to purple, etc. And that, my friends, is my favorite description as well. Now you'll notice we don't talk about wings in that description. We're not sure if there was wings, but I'm starting to lean more towards that just because of all the sightings that involved wings, including the elderly sugarcane guy and in 1975 in Mocha, Puerto Rico. We can't discount those sightings. Of course, the mayor of Canovanas organized a search for old Chupi, got everyone together, pitchforks, flames, guns, whatever they needed, and went after the beast to try and corner it, capture it, do whatever to it. They didn't, of course, because we know that these creatures, allegedly, if they're out there, they're of a different consciousness than us, maybe even a different dimension. Their area, their domain is the woods. They would sense us coming a mile away. If you have ill intent, poof. That's why you have to go out there with the right aura, a positive vibe. If you want to meet old Chupi, even though it's highly likely with 4 out of 5 Jersey Devils, it's a 95% chance, you gotta be friendly. Anywho, the search turned up jack shit. We've never read about one search in our history where they turned up the Momo or the Bigfoot or anything, or the Chicken Man or anything they went after, because those things disappeared before we could even get them. By 1996, old El Chupi was an international celebrity. The coolest part about Chupi was he was the first internet celebrity cryptid. I'm talking the coolest old school personal websites dedicated to Chupacabra. Early Uncle Conspiracy sites dedicated to it. Beautiful 1990s GeoCities, NeoCities, whatever the fuck sites dedicated to it. I'm talking mwah, 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 mwah. The beauty of the internet only the 90s can bring you about Chupacabra reports. So it spread around the world. I think even X-Files had an episode about it, and it landed in America in 96 when several folks in Sweetwater, Florida reported a menacing creature running around their lawns and bothering them at night when things went silent. Then a man in Tucson, Arizona claimed that one night he walked into his son's bedroom and saw a chupacabra sitting on his chest. The glowing red eyes, the gargoyle body looked at him, hissed, and jumped through the window, never to be seen again. The scare ended in 1996, and the 21-year reign of terror of El Chupacabra was finally over. Now, mind you, with the sightings in America, there was also several hundred sightings tied to cattle mutilations and pets going missing and all sorts. But we don't have time to cover all that. I think her name is Linda Howe, does a really great job. Did a really great job covering cattle mutilations and all that fun stuff in the 60s and 70s. There were hundreds and thousands of cases all around the world. Cattle and livestock mutilations were reported in Arizona, Texas, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Spain, and Mexico. Same with sightings of this creature. But where does all this lore come from? Where does Chupi come from? Is it real, interdimensional, a UFO guy, a government experiment, just a bat creature that likes to suck out organs and blood? Who knows? But I know we need to get a new view before we talk about that. So this here would be the view if old Chupacabra was observing us from one of the treetops. One of the greatest researchers and reporters on the unknown was John A. Keel, or in my personal opinion, one of my favorites. I like him the most because he put all these events under one paranormal umbrella. And when I say that, I mean nothing was isolated. When Mothman was terrorizing Virginia, Point Pleasant, Virginia, or West Virginia, one of the Virginias, it wasn't just Mothman. There were lights in the sky. There was heavy poltergeist activity in the area. There was one family experiencing all three: poltergeist activity, entity activity, and lights in the sky. So they're all connected in one beautiful, paranormal, interdimensional experience tailored just for us to help us open our mind, like Dr. Jacques Vallée talks about in Dimensions, and that's a theory I definitely subscribe to. Just like with Mothman and the paranormal umbrella, what do you think was happening in Puerto Rico and South America and other areas where Chupacabra was being sighted at the time? There was a really big UFO flap at the time. Look it up. All over in South America, Puerto Rico, we were seeing lights in the sky and people were seeing creatures running by. Now, dollars to donuts, I don't know this research, but poltergeist activity was probably also up in and around the area. That being said, with old El Chupacabra, for me, Linda Howe, or one of the OG researchers into cattle mutilations, reports black helicopters and people seeing soldiers, Suburbans, weird military, paramilitary forces in the area after a event or a mutilation or before a mutilation, either way. So for me, and I'm a subscriber to Emery Smith and all that fun stuff, old El Chupi might just be a fun little hybrid weapon released to see what it can do. My favorite theory about this comes from information old Jorge Martin got from a caller to his radio show. Much like the precious and beautiful, rest in peace, Art Bell, who had a call in from Area 51 to his radio show that shut the radio program down for a few minutes. Same thing happened to Jorge Martin. A man called in from the U.S. government, apparently worked in a laboratory, much like Emery Smith, and he alleged to have served with chupacabras in Vietnam and to have seen them in cages, which would be pretty freaking cool. So old El Chupacabra being some sort of hybrid, grotesque mutilation, a product of genetic engineering, that's not too far for me. The way I see it, a lot of the abduction stuff we read, the entities that abduct people, they're beyond us. They're on another dimensional level, another level of consciousness. They're typically here to help us. They leave you with a spiritual feeling of joy, even if your experience is painful or scary. You come out of it with a more worldly worldview, let's say. Or that's at least from what we've read. I don't understand. It makes no sense to me why they would need organs. I'm not a subscriber that UFOs and space aliens or the Greys are from space at all. It makes no sense that they'd be like farting around in little UFOs and taking body parts. If they knew how to get here, they'd be, I don't know, they'd know everything in a, I feel like that'd be above them. They wouldn't be like dumbass scientists like us, like how we would do it just because we would do it that way. I think that's a really weird way to look at an otherworldly being, is to think that they would do the same things we would. So I'm like, I don't know why they'd be experimenting on animals and just taking their organs like that. That's more of like a human weird thing that we would do, some mad scientist. Maybe that's just because I watched The Fly recently and I got mad scientists on the brain. But that's what I subscribe to. I mean, could this be one of our interdimensionals? Maybe. But the interdimensionals don't usually leave a wake of corpses and destruction and blood and nastiness. The interdimensionals are friendly. They're like, hey, you know, you saw me, you were scared of me, maybe I threw some rocks at you. Maybe I did kidnap your dog, like Mothman. Or maybe your dog just ran off because it got scared. That does happen. But typically there's not a lot of death like what's associated with old El Chupacabra. Now, if you're asking me, is Chupacabra real and did these people actually experience something? Absolutely yes. They experienced it. And I'll leave you with a bonus one from 1996. The final sighting of Chupacabra was June 27th by Deborah Hernandez. She stepped into her backyard and saw a black creature with pointed ears and enormous fangs. It was ripping open a chicken coop and had one chicken in its claws, but when it saw Hernandez, it dropped the bird and escaped through a hole. 5 weeks earlier, the witness told press she and her husband had lost a goose, 2 guineas, and 6 hens, an unseen something she assumed to be chupacabras. She assumed correctly. The chickens were left bloodless, she said, but their wounds appeared to indicate that their intestines were removed. I know this could not have been done by dogs because there are no feathers anywhere, only chicken bodies, much like the Chicken Man. Well, the Chicken Man left more of a scene, more of a much more deadlier scene. But that's it. That's El Chupacabra. That's the history. Don't believe the bullshit out there about how it was just Madeline in 1995 making up stuff about the movie Species that she just saw. It's way beyond that. It's way weirder than that. And I'm telling you, dollars to donuts, anytime you look into something weird, when you look into actual reports from the people, not from what people in their ivory towers or mainstream folks might say, you're going to find it's a lot weirder. The report often gets whitewashed. It gets downplayed. All the weird stuff gets taken out. It makes me think of stuff like the Hopkinsonville Goblins, which I talk about a lot, and the Las Vegas family encounter. But those are stories for another time. Thanks for joining me for Monsters After Midnight. I'll be back next Saturday. We'll talk about something else fun. I might do some Xbox old streaming right now, but maybe not. But love you from wherever you're watching this. Ta-ta.